Good morning, good morning, good morning, y'all. It is the morning rush, the morning empowerment call for busy executives, heart-centered leaders causing the change we want to see in the world. It is Friday. Often, if it's Friday, it's the cure, and we're in love, and we find out fun facts like Peter Swain did some stuff with the cure back in the day, worked with Peter Smith directly. Cool stuff here. It's been an interesting week, a cool week, so to speak. We started with the top three, like what are the top three actions or things that are driving our business? And then Cara came in with fire on Tuesday, talking about accountability, commitment, promises. And we made a bunch of promises, those of us who are here, and posted it in the chat, and we'll revisit that next Tuesday. Wednesday, we headed into chopping wood and carrying water, and that got into a conversation about sucking, like being okay to suck. And Peter will correct me on that language because I always get it wrong. Peter, what is it? Was that right? It's okay to suck, or what's the
No, it's great to suck.
It's great to suck. Okay, there we go. I'm learning. We're learning. Yesterday, power of our top 100 lists. And today's about relationships because we kind of thought about where our business is going, thought about what we're doing, what we're holding ourselves accountable for, who we want to talk to, and how do we talk to them? How do we build relationships, deepening, lasting, nurturing relationships? I sometimes think of it as like a garden. We have a garden of relationships in our life. What makes the garden grow? What's like pouring water on the garden, or miracle grow, or sunlight? Like, does the garden have all the nutrients that it needs to flourish? Not just like survive, but flourish. And what if we did that with our top 100 list and had these relationships around us that were all kind of supporting us, lifting us higher, introducing us to people? I know Peter Swain made this comment yesterday, like that these are intentional relationships. Certainly if it's for business, are they relationships that are, driving us in the direction and pouring into us the results that we want as we pour into them about what they want? So Janine, I asked Janine today to come into the conversation this morning and just kind of create the space here. But Janine, I feel like you're someone who pours into people and pours into relationships. So I'd love your thoughts on how you approach relationships and how you think about, nurturing the relationships that you have from a business and maybe personal perspective too.
Yeah. So thank you so much for this opportunity, D-Rush. And one of the biggest things that I remember, even one of my friends out in Madison, Wisconsin, reminds me of is, how do you be a good friend? Like, if you are going to be a good friend, and there's a joke that she often will say is like, what's the best vitamin to take to be a friend, David?
The best vitamin D?
No, B1.
B1. All
And
right.
it's funny too, because at least for a lot of the practices that I implement, realizing that similar to people taking in what you want to give, if it really is like medicine, your medicine's not for everyone. And so literally it was so profound yesterday, this gentleman that I've been kind of like creating a relationship with and hanging out with like virtually for 5 months now. I went with a walk with him for the first time. Like, we technically started this journey back in New York City, and right here out in Eagan, Minnesota, I was less than 10 minutes away from him. And so one of the things I strive for in my relationships is proximity. It's realizing that even though Peter Swain, yes, is out in Europe, I realize either we're going to hop across the pond or he's going to come back, because there's something infinite about relationships that I keep seeing happen, David. And it's literally realizing that you might not be for everyone. And I think about myself a lot. People look at me and they're like, wow, she makes friends so quickly. And I realize I lose them just as quick. And so it really is finding who is that person for me and why did we meet? And I love asking that question, like, why did we meet? Because again, there's that whole saying, there's a reason, there's a season. And if you really are willing to nurture the reason, you'll find out in that right season why they're there. And I guess there's also a little bit more of this, and then I'll land my plane on it, is when you start recognizing that you're in a relationship and it's fruitful, it's gonna bear fruit. It's going to be beautiful for other people, and also be okay when that season has it be pruned, because maybe in that time you're able to consciously uncouple and create other opportunities for them and yourself. Although there is this thing about attachment versus commitment. If we're committed to the friendship, we're going to see it thrive. And so with that, David, I love that yes, I feel like a lot of things turn into business because the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Although I feel like it always comes down to the personal. So back to you, David.
Yeah, I see Mindy's comment in the chat, relationships are the ingredient that makes everything grow. One key relationship can change the dynamic of your entire business. Like really, like if you nurture the right relationships, it can change the dynamic of your entire business. I shared the story yesterday, but I was on a webinar with 10,000 interns yesterday at noon, and it was about communication training as they're getting prepared for their internships. And there were 300 people on the call. But because I had nurtured the relationship with the founder, I was invited to this space and I got to connect with all these people. And like one relationship could literally springboard your entire business. And I think there's an intentionality around it, but there's also a nurturing of it, like being a friend. A lot of times when I coached in the financial space, a lot of people were transactional. And our challenge was to become trusted advisors, to become relational, to go from transactional to relational. And how do we do that? We actually listen to people. We build relationships with people. We care about who they are, what they're up to versus just the outcomes we can get to. So, Janine, anything else you want to pour into this this space this morning? I think that's great. Like, how do you? What's the best vitamin is to be a friend. That it's interesting when we think about this. Like, if everybody thinks about it for yourself, what are the things that you do that really build relationships around you intentionally? Like when I thought about it, I was like, I don't know. Like it's not like, hey, this is what I do. I do a lot of things, but is it intentional? Janine, anything you think?
Yes, thank you for bringing up the intentionality, David. Because again, and even thinking about what you were talking about in the spaces where people want it to be transactional, like respecting where they are. Like I feel like I am someone who is still practicing advocating boundaries in some essence, because I do recognize that some people just want to have a relationship with you to talk. Like I have a whole relationship with individuals who only want to see me as the coach for their Tough Mudder coming up on June 29th. I have another group who literally wants me to only be seen as the person, if something happens to them, I take care of their family. And then I've got communities where like, I just want to network Janine. I want to create these channels with her. And so to that point is the intentionality. Like, what did you set to allow them to see you the way that they do? Because even in your own respect to yourself, like what's your relationship with self? And I loved that last week, David, you had created it like your top 5 people you surround yourself on average, and really getting clear if those people you're surrounding yourself with see you as a transaction, see you intentionally as like a friend or a possible family member, see you as someone they want to get intimate with. Like what type of relationships are you actually intentionally creating? Because it's happening conversation to conversation. And so I love that. And so David, I'm curious how these breakout rooms are going to go. And at least for that, I'm really excited that as I'm thinking about what seeds are being planted right now, how are we going to water them?
I love the symbolism. I think a garden is such a great symbolism for the relationships in our life.